Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. What? I turned my head sharply to look at my wife, Carol. What did you just say? I asked, not believing what I had just heard. Dan, I know you're going to be mad, but I'm not thrilled right now, and I'm thinking about trying to break up with you. So I can collect my thoughts and decide what I want, Carol told me as I stood on the porch and grilled steaks. My friend Karen has a spare room, and she said that I can stay with her for now. When were you going to tell me, Carol? Or were you just going to leave a note on my pillow tonight? I said, a little louder than I probably should have. Don't raise your voice, Dan. I don't want Andy to hear what we're talking about, she said. I knew you'd react this way. That's why I didn't want to bring it up until tonight. In other words, you've already decided to leave. Will you tell Andy? Or will you leave it to me after you leave? I asked sarcastically. I'll tell him myself tonight, before going to bed, she replied. It's not forever, you know? Well, yes, you're moving in with that tramp Karen. I guess I should have seen this coming, I told her, getting angrier by the minute. Tomorrow I will prepare the documents, you will sign them, and by Wednesday I will file them in court. What documents? Her question followed. Well, if you're going to leave, I want it to be a legal separation. Then when you don't come back, it will automatically turn into a divorce decree. That way we won't have to go through all the hassle twice, I told her. I don't want a divorce, Dan. Just a little time for myself to sort out some things. That's all, honey, Carol replied. Bullshit, Carol, I spat back. I've been asking you to talk to me for the last 4 months, but you've been too busy with Karen and your new friends to make time. Now you want to move in with your new friend Karen to do what you've probably wanted to do for the last 6 months. Now I was screaming. But you won't do it with my blessing, and I'm certainly not going to stand by and become a cuckold because of you or anyone else, I said, slamming the grill lid shut. Things were not going at all as Carol had expected. She knew Dan would get mad, but she thought she could convince him that it would be an experience for both of them. But now it blew up in her face. Dan, please, was all Carol could manage before he stormed off in anger, leaving her to watch the grill. Taking the steaks from the grill and putting them on a plate, she went to look for him. She found Dan upstairs in their bedroom. He literally threw all her clothes and everything else and carried her to the spare bedroom. Take your shit and get the hell out. I don't care anymore, I yelled at her. I'll send the documents to your office, sign them, and return them to Keith, the lawyer I've been contacting for the last 6 years. Don't worry, I'll take Andy to dinner so he doesn't have to watch his mother leave him, I said, grabbing my coat and my son before heading to my car. Karen, this is Carol, she began. Dan took it badly, very badly, and is threatening to divorce me, Carol said, tears welling up in her eyes. I told you he wouldn't be happy, but he'll come to his senses soon, so don't worry, Karen told her on the phone. Damn it, in a couple of weeks he'll be begging you to come back, and then you'll get him right where you want him. I hope you're right, Karen, because right now he's ready to throw me out the door and start filing for divorce, she said hesitantly. I need to get some rest, but I really don't want to leave my marriage, Carol said. I'll come over now and help you with your things, Karen told her. The sooner you're alone, away from him, the sooner you'll figure out what you really want. Having said that, Karen drove up, helped Carol pack most of her things, and they left the house before Dan and Andy returned. I've been anticipating this for a long time. Carol and I were both accountants and met 8 years ago when we were both auditing a troubled company. Each of us represented a separate bank that had a controlling stake in a bankrupt company. We worked together and ended up having lunch and dinner with each other almost every night. It took us a whole week to complete the check, and by that time we had discovered that we really liked each other. Carol was about 5 feet 6 inches tall, with brown hair and weighed about 175 pounds. She had a pretty face, but she was a bit stocky. I was about 5 feet 8 inches tall, about 195, and at 22 I already had a spare tire around my waist from fast food every day. We were made for each other. For months later, we got married, and 8 months later, Carol discovered that she was pregnant. Carol had a difficult pregnancy. She was bedridden for the last 5 months and gained a ton of weight. By the time she gave birth to Andy, she had ballooned to almost 250 pounds. However, I never said a word. I loved her, regardless of her weight. We were a happy family until Carol heard two of her colleagues talking about her. "She's such a beautiful woman," one girl said to the other. "It's a pity that it's as big as the house. I wonder if her clothes are custom-made at the clothing store of Omar, the tent maker?" she asked, laughing out loud. They may have found it funny, but Carol didn't. Carol was crying in the bathroom when Karen came in. "Are you all right, Carol?" "What is it?" she asked. "Everyone thinks I'm a fat pig," she said, crying. "If they only knew how hard it is for me to lose weight, they wouldn't be so angry," she sobbed. "Listen, girl, all you need to do is go on a good diet and join the gym," Karen told her. "You're a beautiful girl hiding under all this flab, that's all. You just have to make a decision and do it." And Carol did. I was keeping books for the local gym, so we joined training next week. There was a children's room in the gym, so we could take Andy with us after work when we both went. Carol was an obsessive woman and trained 6 days a week, whereas I could only do 3 a week. Then, Carol went to the doctor and got a prescription for weight loss pills. I didn't like it, but Carol was on a weight loss mission. 8 months later, Carol lost 125 pounds and looked fantastic. She bought a brand new wardrobe and everyone, including the men at her job, said she looked great. That's when the trouble started. We were at Carol's Christmas party when shit hit the fan. Carol wore a dress that was more than a little revealing, and she was attacked all night by her male colleagues. She was over the moon with the attention she was getting. When a group of guys caught her under the mistletoe, she must have kissed a dozen before I came over and put an end to it. Carol probably drank too much and didn't even notice that the guys' hands were on her while they were kissing. I took Carol's hand and told her it was time for us to leave. She didn't want to leave right now and made a little scene. "Carol, I'm leaving right now, with or without you," I finally told her. She relented, but I could tell she was furious. We had a big fight on the way home. "Carol, you were acting like some cheap tramp today. I, like everyone else, saw how these guys wrapped their arms around you, and you did nothing to stop them," I shouted. "It was just innocent fun, nothing special," she replied. "Not from where I was standing," I replied. "How would you like it if I kissed and grabbed some girl?" I asked, even though I knew she was too drunk to listen to reason. That evening, Carol became ill. Fortunately, she managed to take off her new dress before throwing away the cookies. The next morning she looked terrible and apologized to me, saying it would never happen again. But it happened. I just wasn't there next time. Carol started stopping after work, on Wednesdays, for a bachelorette party. There were 7 girls, some married, others not, who stopped for a couple of drinks at Tony's after work. It started with the fact that she was supposed to be home by 6:30, but soon it stretched to 7:30 and finally to almost 9 p.m. When Carol got home, Andy was already in bed, and I wasn't in the best mood. When we first got married, we made love like teenagers and couldn't get enough of each other. Now it seemed that if we did it once a week, it would count as often. One thing is for sure. When Carol returned home on Wednesday evening, she was ready to trot, and tonight was no exception. None of us had what you would call a great bed experience when we first got married, and we were a little afraid to try something new from the very beginning. We learned from each other what each of us liked, and after a few rating moves we added a lot of things to our repertoire. Now, however, every week when Carol returned home, she seemed to want to try something new and exciting, for most of which I wondered where she got the idea from. She drank more than usual and came in later than usual, but she knew how to put me in a good mood. "Just take me tonight, honey," she said. I did everything I could. Carol seemed to enjoy it as she screamed as if I was killing her. "Damn it, I needed it," she told me. "But I think I'm going to be sick for a whole week," she said with a laugh, rolling onto her back. I crept up to her, kissed her, and told her how happy I was to be married to her. Well, that's how it was until this week. After dinner, Andy and I returned to the empty house. That fool Karen, I thought to myself. Since Carol lost weight, Karen has been up to something with her all the time. No wonder her husband left her. She was just a cheater, and now she's turning my wife into one too. I put Andy to bed and read him a bedtime story. When he asked about his mother, I just told him that Mom was visiting and would be back home in a couple of days, but I didn't believe it for a minute. I went down the stairs, called my mom, and brought her up to date. "Mom, can you keep an eye on Andy during the day until I find someone permanent?" I asked. "Honey, Carol will come to her senses and be back by the end of the week. You know her. She can't be away from Andy for more than a few hours before she goes crazy, Mom told me. But I'll be there before you go to work and look after him. I hoped she was right, but I wasn't as sure as my mom. On Monday, I contacted Keith and told him that Carol had left me. I want to be fully protected, including permanent custody of Andy. I want it to be written down and spelled out in no uncertain terms that if one of us acts in a way that a married spouse shouldn't, then the other gets 65/35% of our assets. I think she's trying to trick me, and I want to be covered up, I told Keith. I want it to have a 60-day expiration date, after which it will become a divorce decree. And can you do that by tomorrow? I asked. Aren't you in too much of a hurry, Dan? She just left, and you're ready to write the divorce papers, he asked me. Carol has been planning this for a long time, and maybe it will bring her to her senses. If not, I don't want to lose everything I've worked for just because she wants to try someone else, I told him. Okay, Dan, I'll do it today, and tomorrow she'll be served at work. Anything else? It's not that I can think. I just need to draw a line in the sand so that she understands what she can lose, that's all. Besides, Keith, I'll need to draw up 2 more agreements, but we have a little time for them. I'll fax you what I need later this week. When Carol came to work on Tuesday, she was a little upset. She had never seen Andy and Dan for so long in the last 8 years. When she returned from lunch, she heard that a man was waiting for her in her office. Carol Spencer? He asked. Yes, I'm Carol. What can I do for you? You've been served, he said, handing her a manila envelope. Carol spent the next half hour discussing all the conditions and division of property described in the separation decree, although it looked more like real divorce papers. It stated that Dan would receive temporary but full custody of Andy, and Carol would be allowed to visit him with reasonable notice. By the time she finished reading, she was more offended than angry. I've been gone 2 days, and Dan has already written off our marriage, she told herself. She tried to call Dan, but his secretary said he would be out all day, and his cell phone switched to voicemail. At that moment, Dan was at home, changing locks, dividing their finances, and deleting Carol's name from his insurance and 401k. By 4 o'clock, I was done with everything and turned on my cell phone. Damn, I said to myself, 12 messages from Carol. I deleted them all. I had dinner with Andy at my mother's house and told her what I had done. Carol's mad as hell, Dan. I'd be mad if I were her. Mom, I replied, I can't fix this marriage alone, especially since she doesn't listen to reason, so I raised the stakes. She started this mess herself, but I swear to God, I'll end it if I find out she's cheating on me. I used to trust her, but now I wouldn't believe a word she said. So right now I'm protecting my son and myself. If we get back together, it'll be great. If not, then I'll hold all the cards. Son, I've never seen this side of you. Remind me never to get on your bad side, Mom said with a laugh. Carol stopped at her house and tried to use the key. What the hell? She said to herself, before she noticed that it was a new castle. Damn it. She picked up her cell phone and dialed Dan's number again, just before it went to voicemail. So she left him another message. Now everything is done as it should be, I thought, looking at my checklist. Now I just have to wait. Carol was at Dan's office on Wednesday morning. My credit cards don't work, and when I went to get a prescription on my way to work, they told me that I no longer have insurance. Just covering my bases, Carol, remember? You left me. I'm paying all the expenses for the house and Andy, but from now on you'll have to take care of yourself, so you and I won't have any financial problems to argue about. Dan, you let this get completely out of control, Carol shouted. I just needed to be alone for a while, that's all. Leaning over the table, I said in the most serious and unperturbed tone, Carol, do you see the word stupid tattooed on my forehead? I may not be the smartest guy in the world, but I wasn't born yesterday. Karen turned your head so much that you can't seem to find your ass with both hands. You think you can go out and act like you're single again, without any consequences. Think again. The first time I find out that you've broken your marital vows, we'll be done. Damn, you've probably already done that. So I don't even know why we're having this conversation right now. I'm so mad at you right now that I can't think of anything. So I think it's better if you just leave so that I don't say anything that will throw what's left of our marriage down the toilet. With these words, I sat down. Carol was shocked and angry herself. You can't dictate to me like a little kid. I'm an equal partner in this marriage, so fuck you, she spat. Well, it hasn't happened very often in the last 6 months either, but I guess now you're getting everything you can. Anyway, on the side, I said loudly enough for Carol to hear. With that, she turned and left. I knew she hadn't done anything yet, but she was close to it. You see, I started following her on Wednesday about a month ago. There were a lot of kisses and hand games, but that's all there was. I knew she would love living with Karen, so I wanted to make sure Carol understood exactly what would happen if she cheated on me. The first 2 weeks were difficult. Carol made it a point to visit Andy, but she never said more than 2 words to me. I was still watching her, but nothing new happened. She still met with Karen and her friends, but not only on Wednesdays, but at least 4 evenings a week. It looks like someone is trying to catch up, I said to myself, looking at the report. However, I found a kind of babysitter to take care of Andy, a girl just out of college who couldn't find a job. Beth was a 23-year-old blonde, about 5 feet 9 inches tall, with a slim build. She got her degree, but could only find a part-time job, so when she saw my advertisement for a babysitter, she jumped at the chance. Beth came from a large family and knew how to take care of little boys. She had 2 younger brothers. So we came to an agreement on payment and hours, and she moved in the next day. Beth worked as a waitress at a mid-priced family restaurant on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Other nights we all ate together. After a few weeks, Andy became very at ease with Beth, especially when she read to him before going to bed. Beth, I really appreciate you going the extra mile with Andy. Now that his mother is not with him, he needs all the stability in life that I can give him, I said with the best smile I could muster. I know about you and your wife. Your mother has filled me in on all the details in case Carol comes and tries to grab him, Beth told me. I just can't believe she just dumped you like that. I've only known you for a short time, but you're one of the most caring men I've ever met, and I can see that you love Andy to death. I guess Carol got confused about what was really important and let others convince her that the grass was greener on the other side of the fence, I replied. Well, anyway, it's going to end in 40 days, and it can't come too soon for me. I had no idea that there would be a major shift in my life, and this shit would hit the fan in less than a week. You see, I'm a silent partner in the accounting firm I work for. Over the past 2 years, I have introduced so many new businesses that the owners have made me a 15% partner. I asked to keep it a secret because I didn't want to be known as one of the owners. This way I could find out what employees really think about the company and how it is run. My latest achievement was a meeting with a foreign clothing manufacturer that had factories in 5 Asian countries. I met the owners at a party about a year ago and shared some of my ideas with them. They were so impressed that we met the following week to talk about our company hiring them. Dan, I like the way your company works. You seem to go beyond the norm and bring a personal touch to everything you do, one of the prospective owners told him. Each factory is now operating independently, so I need someone to install the same system in each enterprise so that we can manage them all from one overseas office. They were unhappy that I would not be doing the overseas operation myself, but I convinced them that I would keep an eye on everything that was happening so that there would be no mistakes. The party started with a signed contract and a handshake. We had been working on this case for 9 months now, and I really wanted to go home to Carol with the good news. I would have loved to take her to the best restaurant, bring her home and rape her body, but when I returned home, the house was empty, as was his heart. Beth and Andy arrived 20 minutes later with a Chinese takeaway. I was bursting at the seams, and I needed to tell someone my wonderful news, so I told Beth. Forget about dinner. We're all going to celebrate tonight, I told her. Put on your best dress, because we're going out in style. My bosses booked a table at the best restaurant in the city for 8 o'clock and sent a limo to pick us up at 7:30, so we had to hurry. I shaved, showered, and dressed. I told Beth that I would prepare Andy so that she would have more time. By 7:15, Andy and I were dressed and ready to go, and then I saw Beth coming down the stairs. I hope you don't mind. I didn't have anything unusual, so I found one of your wife's dresses that suited me, she explained to me. She was right. It fit her peerlessly, like a silk glove, but it was too short, since she was much taller than Carol. Do you think it looks okay? You look great, Beth, I said with my mouth wide open when the bell rang. The 3 of us were put in the back seat of a limo just as Carol was driving down our street. What the hell? was all she could say when she saw them all climb into the limo. I wonder what's going on, she thought, turning the car around to follow them. Then she watched them get out of the limo and enter the restaurant. That bastard. He's going to take them to the best place in town. And when I wanted to go earlier, he said we couldn't afford it, she blurted out. Who the hell was that girl in my dress? We all had a wonderful night. I was the guest of honor, and we ate and drank a lot. It was Beth who told me it was time to leave, because Andy was tired because it was past his bedtime. You're right, we'd better leave. Otherwise, we'll never wake him up for school in the morning. I thanked everyone for dinner, but when they shook my hand, they looked past me at Beth, and not just the men. Beth looked very attractive tonight, and all the women looked at her with envy. They'd all heard the story of how Carol had left to find herself, and it looked like Dan hadn't wasted any time replacing her. They chuckled to themselves. We drove home quietly because Andy fell asleep as soon as we got into the limo. I took him upstairs, undressed him, and put him to bed, kissing him goodnight on the forehead. I went downstairs, still in my tuxedo, and saw Beth enjoying a glass of wine at the kitchen table. I want to thank you for tonight. You shouldn't have taken me with you, she told me with a smile. How could I leave you here alone tonight? And besides, I really enjoy your company, Beth, I said, pouring myself a glass of wine. I hope you weren't too bored sitting with a bunch of accountants today. On the contrary, I never knew that your work was so interesting, and all people seem to really love you, including me, she said with a slight smile. You make me feel like I'm part of your family, even though I'm just a babysitter. Calm down, my heart, and damn it, I wish my boner wasn't so obvious, I thought, hiding my erection from Beth. It's been a long time since I've made real love to a woman. The last few times with Carol have been disappointing. I would have loved to take Beth to my bedroom, but I also knew that I was still married and would remain faithful to Carol no matter what. Tonight was magical, and my head is spinning from what I would like to do right now, but to my horror, it's not going to happen today, I told her. Maybe if things were different, but they're not, so I need to take a cold shower and go to bed, I told Beth, kissing her cheek as she hugged me. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when I felt Beth climbing into my bed. From the warmth she radiated, I could tell she was naked. I wanted to say something, but she put her finger to my lips. I know there's nothing we can do today. I just want to be with you. That's all, she said, hugging me. The next morning I woke up alone. I found Beth downstairs, dressed, cooking breakfast for the three of us. No one said anything. Carol was beside herself. I'm trying to figure out what I want from life with Dan, and he's already thrown me on the sidelines and found some kind of cheater, she said, slamming her palm on the table. She made the mistake of mentioning it to Karen, who told her that all husbands cheat on their wives and that tonight they should go and celebrate her newfound freedom. She didn't want to go out and have fun tonight, and she really wanted to talk to Dan, but he was always at some other damn meeting. Carol and the band met again at Tony's, and it was full of people, as usual. After a couple of drinks, most of their group headed home, but not Carol and Karen. A couple of cute guys were trying to claim their rights, and Karen was already kissing one of them. Another guy was holding her on the dance floor, and when the slow dance started, she melted into his arms. His warm hands slid all over her body, and Carol felt herself slowly succumbing to his advances. She hadn't been with a man in a long time, and this guy was stunningly handsome, had the body of a Greek god, and wanted her as much as she wanted him. She never stopped him when he kissed her while dancing. She never once stopped him when he led her to a corner of the dance floor and pinned her against the wall. Yes, she had to stop him, especially since Dan's hired private investigator was recording it all on tape. The four of them returned to Karen. I can't. I just can't, she said. I'm still married, and no matter what, I still love my husband, she said, ignoring his objections. So he left her alone, and Carol took one of the 2 cold showers that night. On the computer screen, I saw photos of Carol, the last of which showed the 4 of them entering Karen's apartment. I emailed them to my lawyer and told him to collect the papers, but postponed them until Monday. It looks like she's finally made up her mind, I said sadly, because I really wanted to meet Carol again, but now it was impossible. I'll take care of the Asian project myself, I told my superiors the next day. I need to leave, and that will give me time to clear my head and get my life in order, I told them. Dan, Everything is ready for launch on the 12th. That is, a week after next Tuesday. Can you be ready to leave? They asked. Give me 2 days to get my affairs in order and get my apartment set up so I have somewhere to send my things, I told them. Today I need to talk to 2 more people, and if everything goes according to plan, I will be ready. On the same day, I instructed my staff to deal with all my unfinished projects. I sketched out the papers to give Mom the power of attorney and told Keith to file the paperwork for Carol the following Monday. I'd be safe in the air while she was being served, I said sadly. That evening I went home to a house that would not be mine when I returned from overseas, and I was very sad. Carol and I chose it together, and there were so many good memories associated with it, and now they're all gone. I was unusually quiet at dinner, and Beth thought she'd done something wrong. No, I just have a lot on my mind. We'll talk after Andy goes to bed, I told her. By 10 o'clock, there was silence in the house, and we both stared at each other. Beth spoke first. What's the matter, Dan? If it's because of that night, then I'm really sorry, and it won't happen again, I promise, she told me. Beth, that's not the point. Do you remember that party the company threw for me a couple of weeks ago? Well, I've decided to do the overseas work myself, and Andy and I will leave early on Monday morning, I told her. And I have an important question for you, I began, seeing that Beth was starting to cry. Do you want to come with us? She turned from tear-stained eyes into a smile. Hell, yes, she said, throwing herself into my arms. Do you have a valid passport, Beth? I asked. I updated it last year when I went on a cruise with my college friends, she told me. Well, then everything is fine. You'll need to pack everything by Saturday because they're shipping all our stuff in advance. Leave just enough clothes to last until the end of the weekend and travel clothes for Monday. You can tell your family and friends, but I don't want Carol to find out about this until we're in the air. I'm not sure if it's absolutely legal to just take Andy with me and leave, but I'll do it anyway. I'll answer all the questions when we get back, I told her. That evening I met with my mother and explained everything to her, including giving her my power of attorney. Carol may be fine on Monday afternoon, but I still want you to put the house up for sale next week. Keith will send you a copy of the papers I'm sending to Carol, and if she has any questions, just tell her to talk to Keith. Are you sure this is what you want, Dan? Don't you want to try to sort it out with her? Mom asked. She's made her own bed, and now she can sleep in it with whomever she wants, I said. Are you taking Beth with you? What is it? She asked, trying to get the last sentence out of her son. I'm not sure exactly where we're going, but she makes me smile and keeps my sanity. Other than that, I might have some real feelings for her, and that's all I'm going to say. We're coming Sunday night, so you can say goodbye to Andy, I told her. On Monday, Carol was trying to call Dan when she was told at work that he was engaged in some special external project, but they would give him a message. And what the hell is he doing? She thought, trying unsuccessfully to reach him. Carol Spencer? The man asked. She nodded. You've been served, he said, handing her an envelope. And now what? What is it? She asked, opening the envelope. There was a short note from Dan saying that he had made a decision. I hope you have a wonderful life. That's how he ended it. And then she saw the photos. Oh shit, was all she could say. Where the hell did he get these photos? She thought. That bastard must have been following me, she said, flipping through them. They weren't the kind of photos you'd want your wife in with another man. But I've never slept with him. I have to make him understand that, she told herself. Dan went abroad for 4 or 5 months. He left with Andy on Monday morning, Dan's mother told Carol. He can't take Andy away from me, especially from the country, she shouted. I'll take him to court and make sure he's put in jail, she shouted. Carol, Dan has full custody of Andy, remember? You gave up that right when you left to find yourself, she reminded her. To say you fucked up royally would be a gross understatement. You had a great marriage, but I think you wanted more. And now you have nothing, Dan's mother told her. I have to talk to him and explain that everything is not what it seems, Carol said, sobbing. I still love him and have never gone to bed with anyone else. Carol, I've seen the photos, and if my husband were alive and doing what you're doing, I'd divorce him too. If I were you, I'd write him a letter and explain what you need, and I'll make sure he gets it. Carol did a good job of making her point. That alcohol played a big role. and that she stopped it and hasn't gone all the way with anyone since she left. Carol said she still loves me and will be waiting for me to come back to her. I answered briefly and to the point. Carol, you haven't been my wife since you lost weight last year. It's like you've become too good for me. You were absorbing all the men's attention and making me feel used on Wednesday night when you finally decided to come back to my house. So now you and Karen can make love to whoever you want. I told you that Karen would eventually separate us, but you knew that wasn't the case. Andy, Beth and I are building a new life based on love and trust. You can see Andy anytime. Just get the modem for your computer's camera and I'll set it up. Sign the papers, because Mom is putting the house up for sale this week. We don't have a chance that we'll ever be together again, so don't expect me to change my mind. I hope you finally got what you were looking for, Carol, and you're happy. Although I never wanted this to happen, Carol knew Dan was right. She was a stupid idiot, listening to all her good friends who knew what they were talking about. That's probably why they all got divorced. She was going to fight until she received Dan's letter and finally signed the papers. The irony was that 6 months later, Carol was back to the 175 pounds she started with 2 years ago, but no longer had Dan. I was happy. The job was a little hard because of the language barrier, but I did it. Andy picked up words here and there and managed to communicate with all the guys he played with. Beth took care of Andy and set up a schedule for our free time. Places to see what to do, as she put it. I still remember that night a few months ago. It was right after we arrived in the country, and we were all a little tense. Andy was struggling to go to bed. My program wasn't going as smoothly as it should have, and Beth was feeling a little overworked. She came into the office and kissed me on the back of the head, which brought a smile to my face. She bent down, took my hand and led me into the bedroom, where there was one candle on each side of the bed. We undressed and got into bed. Let's just say that heaven and earth merged together that night. For the next few months, we did whatever the other wanted, unless it was related to pain. We were more than happy. 5 months later, my mother met us at the airport. She was glad to see us all, especially Andy. On the way home, she kept glancing at Beth, who seemed pleased. "How far have you come?" "What is it?" she asked. "Beth." She stepped back a little. "For 3 months, how do you know?" "I hardly show up," she replied. "You both look too happy, like a cat that ate a canary," she told us. 2 weeks later we got married, and 6 months later Rhonda was born. When Beth said she wanted to go to the gym to lose weight after giving birth, I looked like I'd seen a ghost. 2 days later, I informed her that I had hired a personal trainer for her and that SHE would do all the training. There's no point going through all this shit a second time, I thought to myself.